How's it going, guys? It's Burgas here and welcome to another Call of Dragons video. Today we're going to talk about developer Q&A. And you know what I realized after reading the latest developer Q&A? The developers aren't just changing matchmaking again, they're changing migration score, they're changing camp against camp, they're changing glory ratings, they're changing how battle losses are calculated, and they're trying to help newer players. And they even talk about rewards. At first, all of those changes feel completely unreal to me, but the more I thought about them, the more I realized they're all trying to solve the exact same problem. And honestly, I think this is where a lot of us get frustrated. Whenever matchmaking is, have this feeling is unfair, the first reaction usually is the developers have no idea what they're doing. I even said to myself before, you look into the season, you look at the kingdom you're fighting, and immediately it feels obvious that something went wrong. But after sitting with this Q&A for a while, I start asking myself a different question. What if the problem isn't that they're bad at designing matchmaking? What if they're trying to solve a problem that simply doesn't have a perfect solution? Sometimes the interesting part isn't whether a change is good or bad, it's understanding why the developers feel that they have to make this change at first place. If you enjoy those kind of strategy discussions too, consider subscribing and leaving a like. It helps us to keep having conversation like this. The first thing I realize is that most of us measure player strength using the easiest number we can see, and that's power. If someone has 30 million power, we immediately assume they're stronger than somebody with 180 million power. But the developers just admitted something really interesting. They're changing matchmaking because power isn't accurate measuring player strength anymore. That's a much bigger statement than it sounds. And I completely agree with that, because here is the thing. At one point, you're going to be a tier 5. At one point, you're going to be a tier 5. I think it's over 60 million or something like this, 61, depending on the account. You're going to be a tier 5. The moment you're hitting tier 5, you become equal to with majority of the players. Because the 300 million person is not going to have like tier 8 or tier 10. Maybe it's going to have some decorations, but yeah, this is a different topic. My point is, on the fight, you're going to see people who is having like, let's say 100 million power, and those people are performing like, I don't know, 10 million, 50 million, 20 million merits, till you can see some whale that is having like 200 million power, or maybe 300 million power, and those people are having even less merits. On first look, they're having like 3 times more power from the first person, but in the same time they have less merit. And so far, the only thing that can actually measure except power, because the power is the first impression you're getting, and people are still measuring things with the power, is actually how much merits you're doing. And you're going to be surprised at how much low power people, how many low power people is having so big impact in the KvK. That's why some kingdom that's not having that many power, but is having extremely active players, is dominating. We're not talking about whether they're going to win or this is close. They're dominating. They're not there to compete. They're dominating. And I think the developers is actually moving in this direction, just to know how much can bring on the table when the fight starts. And definitely the power can give someone an idea, but it's like small percentage from the whole picture what the player can do the next KvK. Once I stopped thinking about the power, another question immediately came up. If power isn't enough, then what should matchmaking actually measure? Activity? Some players are online 20 hours a day, others only work for the biggest fights. Should activity decide matchmaking? Probably not, because activity still doesn't tell you who wins battles. And here I can give myself as an example. I only walk in for the big fight. From time, I'm also walking, to send my gathering heroes. I walk in to do some buildings, but I'm not that type of player who is, sitting whole day looking for some AFK march, or somebody go to strike Darkling Patrus and I'm there with my cavalry to strike him out. I mean, I walk in when the time come, when my alliance are needing me. So from one point, I'm active at the right time. From other perspective, I'm not active because I'm not whole day in the battlefield. So by looking these two ways or these two activities, um activity is also not the right thing to measure, because here is the thing: if you now stop fighting, there is a pretty decent chance you make some errors because you're not having the support of your alliance. When the big fight is coming, everybody's walking, everybody send their marches, so you feel comfortable because it's not only your march on the battlefield. On the other side, when you're alone with, for example, cavalry, or you're trying something with mages, there is a very big chance you get catched by some kind of trap, somebody strike you, and you feel your hospital and you're not able to fight on the big fight, or when the big fight happen, you're not going to go out with your 5 legions, you're going to go out with 1 or 2 legions. So this is also an impact from overactivity at the most important moment, and this is where your alliance is actually pushing. So having these two players, one walking at the moment where the big push is happening only, and the other one that is non-stop active, you see there is a huge difference in the activity. But this is the important moments that have the biggest impact, when your alliance is actually doing a push. Then I realized activity isn't even the hardest thing to measure. Skill is. And that's where the entire system starts falling apart. Think about two players with almost identical accounts. One understands positioning, knows when to disengage, protect their marches, coordinates rallies, and reads the battlefield, and the other just a move into every fight. On paper, those players look almost identical. On the battlefield, they're not even playing the same game. And boy, oh boy, this is happening over and over and over again. You see somebody march that is extremely hard to be catched, and you see somebody who is just, when you do the quick battle menu, you have this march attack, and when you click the march attack, you just send your troops. I see this over and over in the Battle of Abyss, because I guess the people is like 15 minutes, they want to get as much merits as they can. So they're doing that, but also in the real fight, I see people who is not, is having very bad positioning, get catched by the infantry, get catched by the cavalry, and at one point you have like two people who is like 100 million power, but one dude is just not skilled like the other one. The other one is knowing that if I go little in this direction, there is a pretty decent chance. Uh, for example, you're fighting on the battlefield, you try to push, and you're pushing, but okay, this guy may actually do some cavalry bomb on my side, okay? This dude can do some cavalry bomb. So better I move on this side, because there is nobody here, and I'm not going to get a cavalry bomb by this guy. And this guy can definitely do some cavalry bombs. So, but the other person can still fight in here, not even knowing that this dude can, spam him like 5 cavalry. That is going to destroy like 50% from his march in the first couple seconds. So there is just so many things. Some players are just very good in the PvP and open field fights. Others are not that good. But having the same account, having the same activity, is just not going to show you. And the difference here can be like 2-3 times. I mean, one person can make like 3 times more merits from the other one. And in point of merits, this is, the value the person present on the battlefield. So this is also something that we have to keep in mind when we're trying to making these matches between the kingdoms, and I think it's extremely important. But even skills isn't the biggest variable. Kingdom organization is. I've fought wars where I know the other side has stronger individual players. they're still losing. Not because their account were weaker, because their kingdom wasn't operating as one team. Meanwhile, I've been seeing kingdoms with average accounts completely dominating because everyone show up, follow calls, build towers on time, reinforcing rallies, and understand their role. How do you read an algorithm that measures that before the season even begins? You can't. And this happens so much time to me. I remember back in the days fighting against Nephisto, some of the players, old G players will remember this bad boy, but he was having crazy amount of power, and he was having one group with a couple of people who also have decent amount of power. But there was individual players. The overall kingdom they was in was not actually building the best strategy. And I fight these bad boys 3 times, and the 3 times I actually win. So this is one of the examples I have in my head from back in the days, what actually happened, and how the coordination and the teamwork actually beat the raw account strange. And yeah, this is where the difference in the organization is actually coming. And one of the main reasons I decided to back in the days to leave BTX was exactly this. There was one war lead, and he was available for like 1-2 hours, and that's all. That's all the fight we was having. That was the all coordination we was having. So yeah, back in the days, there was going to be good leadership is extremely important, and bad leadership. And still, this cannot actually be measured. I mean, there is just so many things that we cannot measure it. The leadership cannot be measured, the skills cannot be measured. So yeah, if you have great organization and you see your kingdom is having good organization, stay there. Stay there, they're knowing what they're doing. And this is when the developer Q&A suddenly made complete sense to me. Camp against camp, migrational score, battle loses, gory rating, new player progression, rewards changes. At first they look like completely separate updates. Now they look like a different attempt to measure something that can't actually be measured with one number. And this is one of the main reasons I actually make this video about this Q&A. Now, I don't make a lot of videos like going over the updates. I think everybody can just scroll down and read what they want to read. Obviously, if you see like Call of Dragons developer Q&A, some hot topics, you're definitely going to see some good things like token recovery. You get your tokens back, but the people complain that they're losing star ratings, so you're going to get 80% from the medals. I mean, stuff like this where the game know that you're going to like it. But I think this specific Q&A, Julie hot topic, I think is having a great impact over the players and the KvK in general. So everything here is not like some random generated updates. It's going to be matchmaking feels unfair for some seasons. Strife, you're going to see this one. Some players letting rallies attack their city. Many villages. You can go over everything, but at the end of the day, I think this is very interesting update, and I hope with this video is actually showing you the bigger picture I see in my eyes. And if there is one thing I hope you take from today's discussion, is that sometimes the most interesting answers is whether isn't whether a change is good or bad, is understanding why that change exists in the first place. Those are kind of investigation I love making, and they're only possible because of everyone supporting the channel through the membership. Your support gives me the time to keep testing, digging into developer updates, and making long-term strategy discussions like this. If you do like to help me continue making videos like this, you can check out the membership below the video.